Feel free to ask any questions. It looks like Xavier's left. But yeah, we'll kick off again. So my journey into tech was an interesting one, right? So I did 4 years of university up in Scotland. I studied business management for over 4 years. Didn't teach me the skills needed to break into the tech industry. It didn't teach me anything about sales, and sales is probably the most important skill in business. So I left university like not sure of what I wanted to do. Came down to London like most people do, and was a bit lost, right? I didn't realize, what I could do in sort of any industry. I didn't want to go to the big four. Didn't want to work for KPMG, Deloitte, EY. Probably didn't have the actual skills to work for them, because I knew a lot of their grad schemes were quite hard to get into. So I ended up doing, bar work, worked in pubs, put up marquees, did lots of part-time work. And then maybe 6 months in, I realized I need to get a proper job. Worked for a startup in sort of a marketing role. And then I actually landed a sales role doing door-to-door sales in the streets of London. So I did that for 12 months. Taught me a lot about resilience and grit. And it was a tough role, but I enjoyed it, and I actually built some skills and confidence doing door-to-door sales. So it was kind of, I was on my feet, I was out and about, but I realized during the winter, I was walking the streets of London, it was super cold. It was actually quite physically draining, mentally draining, and the career progression and earning potential wasn't there. So I think I was earning like 22K with a £500 bonus, which at the time I thought was great. But looking back, mate, I honestly can't believe I was in that role, but it gave me such a good platform. Anyway, I always had this dream, a desire to work in technology. I believe I watched The Social Network, the Mark Zuckerberg film where he's creating Facebook at Harvard and dropped out. And then, I really always had a passion for technology. I don't know why. I was always drawn to the US startup scene and watched different, series. And I thought it was really cool. The fact that you could work in tech and work with smart, interesting people in dynamic environments. Anyway, I applied to maybe 50 or so roles, probably 100 actually, and was rejected by pretty much each job and each company because I didn't have 2 years of tech experience or sales experience, and that's what they were looking for. A lot of these companies still have these barriers up that you have to have this sort of potential or experience to work in tech, which doesn't make sense, right? It sort of discounts the reason you'd have an entry-level role in the first place. So I landed eventually a SDR, BDR entry-level role for a US firm in London, and actually met the interviewers, got on really well with them. I'd been researching myself for over 6 months, but eventually broke in. And by this time, I was probably around 24, 25. I took a gap year, did a 4-year uni degree. And then that was 5 years out. And then I also did 1.5 years of door-to-door sales. So, I was actually a little bit older than people that get into tech. But what I realized, I was actually quite young to break into tech, because I'd say 90% of our individuals we help out with Entr Tech and I help break into tech are in their mid-20s, 30s, 40s. I even had friends later on when I was working in tech call me up and ask to get in. So the best time to get into technology was yesterday, and the best time is going to be tomorrow. So you're never too late to break into tech. Just the way the world's going with generative AI, different software tools that are coming out. Every industry in the world is tech enabled. So if you can work in software, you can go anywhere in the world. So anyway, I broke in my sort of mid-20s, mid-early 20s, around about 24, and then did the SDR entry-level role for around 18 months. Got promoted, moved companies, and then over the course of 5 years, 4.5 years, broke into a regional director role, where then during the pandemic, I realized, damn, like if I struggle to break in with a 2-1 from one of the best universities in the UK, surely there must be hundreds of thousands, even millions of people that are struggling to break into the tech industry with no degrees or no support network in place. Schools and universities don't teach these skills. So I thought if I could change my trajectory and career path, I went from 22K outside of tech to earning 150K within the space of 4 years. I thought, okay, I got to travel the world, New York, Chicago, you name it, flew across all of Europe. I was taking on president's clubs to Barbados, Mexico, different places. So a president's club is if you're doing well in the role, they'll fly you out to somewhere in the world, sales team, the high performers, once a year. So the perks were insane. Private healthcare, lunches paid for, bonuses, loved it. And I realized, you don't necessarily have to have gone to study business studies. And I thought, how can we create a platform which accelerates people that are passionate about technology, financially motivated, and accelerate their path into tech? So we've helped over 500 people now launch their careers in software, really focused on sales and commercial roles like customer success, sales development, account management, account executive roles. And we work with companies, some of the leading companies in the world, hire our students. So we've created an accredited program where you've seen as Europe's leading boot camp, and paired that with a community. So we meet up every 3 months in London, got an online community as well. So it's also the network we're building and the support system, the mentoring alongside the learning. So that was my story. I'll go through some experiences. Feel free to add any questions in the chat. I think we're going to have a lot more. We're going to record this, so people are going to have the same questions as you guys. So don't be shy. That's what I'm going to say. I'll run through the slide deck. So I guess my struggle was pretty tough, right? I was sending out hundreds and hundreds of applications online, CVs, generic cover letters. Didn't hear back, right? Complete silence. And I got nowhere. And I felt like, okay, maybe a career in technology wasn't for me. I got to that stage where I was like, okay, I'm working in door-to-door sales. Maybe that's going to be me for the rest of my life. But I had this niggling thought. And I thought, I'm someone who can work hard. I'm coachable. And I just believed in myself that I could get into the industry somehow. And even today, right, it's super competitive. Like, I'm sure you've seen entry-level roles right now are really tough. AI is taking some jobs, but actually sales roles compared to coding is actually really positive, right? Sales will always need human interaction, and a lot of these AI tools will need salespeople to sell it. So actually, it's still very buoyant working in software sales, but it's still competitive right now because everyone wants to get into tech sales. We've helped lawyers, doctors, accountants, people that worked at KPMG, Deloitte, like consulting firms. Smart people are now following, tech sales because they know the earning potential's there, the money, the career progression, the perks, the benefits, and the fact that you don't have to work 9 till 9, right? You can work 9 till 5, 9 till 6, get home to your families and not burn out. You're not working in investment banking. So it's really competitive. What I'd say is, if you're at this stage, just think about the way you're approaching your job applications, because I got there too, and sometimes you've got to work smart and not hard. So at Entr Tech, we actually have our own framework, which is interesting, and we can go into a bit more detail. But this changed everything for me and helped hundreds of people break into software roles. And I guess it starts with like the messaging and the mindset. Of course, you can apply to thousands of jobs, but realistically, you should be looking at your strengths and weaknesses, looking at your work history, because most of you on this call will have done roles before, and seeing what sectors are applicable to you. So if you worked in healthcare, apply to health tech. If you worked as an accountant, apply to fintech. There's lots of different ways you can spin up your story and craft your positioning and transferable skills. But I'd also say, really important, you're improving your LinkedIn, right? That is essentially your CV these days. And we work with our students to reframe their CV, their LinkedIns, their CVs. But essentially, your LinkedIn should be a landing page of traffic. So when people come to see you, they can see a clear image, they can see a headline, they understand what you do, what you're looking to get into. And that's going to set you apart from the majority of people that are just blind applying and just sending their CVs. You should also look at your unique value. What specialist knowledge do you have from your industry that you've worked in? And if not, what personal characteristics and traits do you have from your non-work experience? So it might be you've played, competitive sports. You might have, read certain books or traveled the world, or, have some stories that you can stand out. You want to be memorable during these applications. You want to stand out. It's almost like when you're on social media, you almost want to pattern interrupt someone to stop you and be like, oh, that's interesting, I'll look at that. oh, that person has lived in 13 different countries, has got interpersonal skills. That's an example, right? Someone's run a marathon for this charity. Wow, that's pretty cool. But also, like, if you're applying to roles, LinkedIn's such an amazing tool, right? You can actually link in with potential hiring managers or people that work at the firms that you've highlighted that you want to work at, and send them a message. Research their actual profiles, see where they've worked, see what football team they follow and support. You can have a look at what people follow on LinkedIn or groups they're in, and you can actually, it sounds a bit stalkerish, but makes a massive difference. If you send a customized message to someone and say, hey, I've done my research, I've seen you worked at XYZ before and you support XYZ sports team, would love to have a virtual coffee on me if you have some time, right? Think of the way you're going to get through to people, and the mindset's massive as well. Like, sounds cliche, but you've almost got to be I guess hunting and doing the SDR or BDR job or tech sales job before you get the role. And that's very much 90% of it is research based, researching the right people, being persistent on following up on different ways you can reach out to them on email. LinkedIn, there's different tools you can use to scrape people's emails from their LinkedIn profiles. You can even cold call them, drop them calls, or WhatsApps. There's so many ways you can get in touch with people these days. Then obviously there's the way you can LinkedIn easy apply, but that's the basic one, right? But I would say as well, don't be against linking in with people at certain firms and asking other people to refer you to jobs. Don't be against cold emailing, and don't be against just applying on the company website. And look at like heads of talent leaders, heads of sales development reps to refer you. There's lots of different people and frameworks you can use. And then use like strategies that will really work. Obviously, you've covered a few of them already, but there's so many ways you can get in touch with people. And then obviously, what I would say is money and multiply, in terms of like, if you want to get that job, there's certain firms that you should look at and certain firms you should avoid. Like, there's a famous quote that if you're in, I think it's Warren Buffett or Brian Buffet, I don't know how you pronounce it, the big investor, and he says you should be in the fastest ship there is. There's a lot of rubbish firms out there which scream red flags, and I implore you to really do your due diligence on what companies you're applying to and joining, because you don't want to be sat in a company where you're calling 100 people a day and it's almost like you're in a sort of sweatshop environment. You should be working for blue chip American companies which pay the highest in London, and you're maybe doing 30 strategic cold calls, or you might be just taking warm calls inbound, and you might be looking at higher tier accounts, enterprise accounts, and doing more strategic work instead of just spraying and praying and being in a stressful environment. There's a lot of roles where it's very much thought out, methodical outreach, and you're working in great environments with interesting, smart people, software that's changing people's lives, where there's progression, where there's earning potential, where there's a really healthy environment, as opposed to working in a company where the software they're selling, they don't believe in. It's probably not a great product. There's probably better competitors out there, and they're just selling it and undercutting their pricing to get clients on board, and no one's hitting their sales target. So there's two different types. And also there's companies that have got good funding, offer you equity, which is ownership of the business. There's so much to go in that goes into it. But I'd say just make sure you're looking at the companies you're applying to and apply intentionally. Like, if you're intentional about the applications you're putting out there, you're going to get better results. But you've got to start with your why and what do you want as a candidate going in, which is really important. Sometimes you've got to take a step back, take a step forward. So I'd just say use this exercise tonight, is sit down by yourself and write out what's important to you. And if you don't know what's important to you, then worth connecting with people, even myself, if you want to reach out. I guess that's the value in programs like Entr Tech. We're going to give you the playbook of what companies, what good looks like as a company, and how to get the best jobs out there, because there's a lot of rubbish companies out there which will set you back in your career if you join them. Going back into it, yeah, so we've had like lots of success stories as part of Entr Tech. What have helped people that have worked as doctors, lawyers, accountants, you name it. But I think one thing everyone has when they come on to Entr Tech and when they get a job is they are really passionate about technology. Like you can't half fake it to make it. Is you can do that to some extent in some of the interviews, but you've got to really be passionate about technology and show that you've done the research in the company you're applying to. So I always say to people, I always have like 3 reasons why you want to join that company. It's not 3 reasons why you want to be in sales, like why that company in particular. It could be like the culture, it could be the software they sell, it could be the actual clients they have, could be the reviews you've read online, the awards they've won. But you should really believe in the software you're selling, because if you believe in what you're selling, um, your job as a salesperson is going to be so much easier. So I'd say really have your why and that story, why you want to join them, lined up. And you know, what I would also say is just be clear that you want to be in sales. I mean, the great thing about entry level tech sales roles is you don't have to stay in sales for life, right? I've helped SDRs and people break into the industry that do the role for maybe 12 to 18 months, and then they'll pivot into marketing or product or customer success, or they'll work as coders. But the beautiful thing about this entry level role is, you can build your personal brand, you can learn so much about the product you're selling, you can understand the team dynamics, you're part of a winning environment. So I guess it is a bit of a rite of passage. Most people will need to do a BDR SDR job to get into any tech company these days. And I mean it. There's not many roles where you can just land a role without any experience. The tech sales and SDR BDR route is that way where you can break into tech with no experience. But it does mean you're gonna have to work hard for 12 months to 18 months to then move into a sales role where you're closing business as opposed to just reaching out to people and generating interest and booking meetings. The next stage is actually closing as an account executive. But I would say it's such a beautiful role, guys, because the pressure it isn't as intense as you're closing, right? It's pressure in terms of every month it resets, in terms of your targets, but it's not like at the end of the year, if you're not hitting target, you're going to lose your job, which is the case in some sales roles. So I'd say the earning potential, you'll be earning way above any entry level role probably in the world, apart from investment banking or private equity. Apart from some finance roles, it's one of the most well-paid role there is in the world. But also you're learning so much, you're working with great people, and you've got that path to maybe go into sales full time or go into different roles in the technology industry. So yeah, for me, it's a no-brainer. And as I said, there's the opportunity to travel the world and meet some amazing people. And you grow your network. So if you ever got a business one day, you'll have people to call upon, or if you want to start a business, sales is so important in any business. Like when I started Entr Tech, I needed to know how to sell to companies to hire our students. Like you need sales in any walk of life. So for me, it's a no-brainer. If you think about tech sales, you're on the right path. We've spoken about this, but again, really optimizing your CV. We work with a CV coach that optimizes people's CVs in LinkedIn, but really make it specific to tech sales. And again, as I said, we've helped retail workers, policemen, men and women, firefighters. Like once you have the right method, the door's open. So it doesn't matter where you come from, you can get that role. Sometimes people need a bit more support, but with the right support, you'll get there. So being strategic, not spraying and praying, and like present yourself with confidence and authority. That's one thing people are gonna look out for. If you're joining these interviews and you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what certain acronyms mean, you're gonna look a bit silly. I've been there before in my personal experience, and I've gone to interviews pre-pandemic. I think it's before I actually got the door-to-door sales job. When I was working in bars and marquees, I thought I'll try and get into tech, and I only joined 18 months later because I got the door-to-door sales job. But I went to interviews, recruiters would put me forward for them, and I just flunked. And I'd try and fake it, and I'd go to interviews and not know what I'm saying, and I didn't know my why. So if all of you here should write down like your why. Why do you want to be in sales? Why do you want to be in tech sales? And really run through methodically what you know, and I guess do your research as well on the company and what tech sales is, and get some additional learning if you can, because it's going to set you apart. The worst feeling in the world is going to these interviews and burning through accounts, and then you can't go back to them till maybe 2 years later, because you're going to be in the CRM in their system, right? Their ATS. Maybe like, oh, we spoke to this guy 6 months ago, he was rubbish, or girl. So think about what you're doing, present yourself with confidence. If they have a sniff or they hint that you're not confident, you don't know what you're talking about, they're not going to put you forward. But that's just how the way the world works. So make sure you're getting yourself in proper shape before these interviews. Because if it was easy, everyone would be in tech sales and it wouldn't be paying well. That's why it pays well, because it's, they want the best of the best to be working at these companies. So this is a bit of a gauge on like how people are earning, how much they're earning in software sales. So yeah, typically our graduates are earning anywhere from 35 to 40, 45 to 50K base salary in their first years. Sometimes it can be a little bit lower, but on average, people are earning probably about 40 to 50K in their first year. I know SDRs and people are trained earning up to 70K in their first year, and that's a mix of probably 45K base with 25K commission. So the earning potential is there in software sales within, I wouldn't say 12 months, I'd say 18 to 36 months. So a year and a half to 3 years. That's when people are earning six figures. And there's obviously this commission and equity and bonuses involved in that. So yeah, we helped one individual in the September cohort come through earning 45K base on target to earning 65 in their first year. And again, he was working as a journalist before, had no prior tech experience, no prior sales experience. So once you leverage this framework, guys, the earning potential just runs. And the benefit of obviously coming onto a program like ours is you have that support network in place, you get ongoing mentoring, access to our community and people that are going to support you in the role. So again, when I started, I found it quite hard not having anyone outside my office that I could speak to and help, because it is tough when you're in that job. But that's why there's a benefit if you can find a mentor and have some sort of community element, you're going to reap the rewards. So I'd say, yeah, the only thing that's standing between you and tech is that framework. It might feel like it's hard. I'm not sure if some of you have already started applying to roles. But if you feel like you need support, feel free to drop me a message on social media if you've got my details, or drop me a LinkedIn message. But I'd say manage that messaging mindset, and multiply that and make sure you're being intuitive and thinking through every application. And that's why at the end of the day I built Entr Tech to help people that are really serious and ready to make that next step, get them accelerated into the best jobs in the shortest time possible. So if that sounds like you, feel free to drop me a message, apply on Entr Tech. We spend 6 weeks applying this framework, going deeper into accredited training, everything from CV prep and methodical training on and outreach and different tools and job search strategies and presentations and pitch training is all included. And again, I'd say direct coaching and feedback. So we hold your hand, so you feel like you are confident and you have got the tool sets to be successful and not just land a job, but succeed and land that next stage in your career. And then that's all included in terms of a community, like you meet like-minded people, career switchers, people that have come from different walks of life. It's actually quite nice. You'll build friendships and people outside your social network. I mean, even in my 20s and 30s, it's kind of hard to, when I was coming through, it's kind of hard to find people outside your normal network that work in tech and are into growth mindset and wanting to find the next stage in their career. So that's a big part of what we've created is that network effect of meeting other people. And yeah, I'd say think about where you want to be in the next year, right? Some people will spend 30 to 50K on a degree and not have any sort of outcomes for it. I think the great thing about working in tech sales is the earning potential is huge, right? So the payoff of coming onto an accelerator or a program means that with one job, you can be 10 years ahead of where you'd be if you were in a non-technical role or non-role outside, non-tech role. And a lot of people don't realize that there are roles like tech sales, customer success, roles where you don't have to know how to code and you can really learn and progress. A lot of these companies, right, will allow you to work 2 to 3 days from the office or 1 or 2 days from the office, the rest from home. Some are fully remote. Some companies will actually allow you to work 1 or 2 months from anywhere in the world. The perks are there. So that time and location freedom is really, really huge. And yeah, we're quite specific. We only take on a limited number of people. We actually got our last cohort of 2025, which will take us up to the end of the year, starting this week. We will be running more cohorts in 2026. So if people listening to this, watching the recording or on the call now, are keen, again, feel free to reach out to myself directly on LinkedIn or social media, or drop us a comment on our different social media pages, and we'll get back to you. So yeah, I guess if anyone's ready to break into tech, feel free to drop me a message or drop it in the chat. All I'd say is, if you are not sure if this is more something you're exploring, do your research. I think we've got our own podcast, Entr Tech, on YouTube, Sales and Sports on YouTube as well, which should be a good resource for you guys to listen to success stories and other people like yourselves. And yeah, best of luck. I think one thing I'd say is no one's come through our program and regretted it. I think what I'd say is no one's ever broken into tech or tech sales and regretted it.